Welcome to the In Cobb We Trust podcast. And today I have a very special guest, House District 35 Representative Lisa Campbell. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation.
I was really excited to have you on the podcast because we've known each other here for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that we're all on the same team. We're on the left-sided team, but we sometimes find ourselves on different sides of topics sometimes. But I always enjoy the back and forth, and that's what I'm looking forward to today.
Thank you.
Before we start off, though,
Okay.
letting the people know, what is your district? Where is it?
District 35. This is my second term, just the start, midway through my third year as a legislator.
Okay.
And the district has changed while I've been in office. We had redistricting.
You mean we had Jared?
We had redistricting. I first ran in 2020. And so the district has changed. But essentially, it's all within Cobb County.
Okay.
It's North Cobb. It is most of the city of Ackworth, most of the city of Kennesaw, and a little bit of Marietta. So the lines, they are gerrymandered, as we know, kind of weave in and out. But you can kind of think of the northern Cobb border as the limit. 41, it splits right down Ackworth, the line, splits the city in half, all the way down to the east-west connector. And then on the eastern border, my brain kind of works left and right. On the eastern border, it's 75.
Okay.
So KSU is in our district. A little bit of the Bells Ferry area is now in our district, all the way almost to this office, just a little bit north of this office.
Oh, see? I would not, well, I think they drew the lines to make your seat safely blue. Was that it? Or is that they're trying to draw you out of your seat?
My house is literally one street from the line. So people can read what they want into that. It was pretty precarious. When I looked at the map for a split second, I thought, I've been drawn out. Zoom, 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 zoom in. No, I haven't. But I think it's very clear to me that in the last redistricting special session that we had, unfortunately, while it's not illegal, the Republican Party absolutely gerrymandered every single district. And in order to achieve the results that they wanted, which was a very safe majority for their party, they did so many damaging things, not the least of which was diminishing the voices and the votes for especially Black voters in Cobb County in particular. They drew several of our legislators into districts together. So our district did wind up with a few more blue votes.
Mm-hmm.
That was not some sort of generous gift that they gave us. There was a payoff across the state in a really negative way.
And, while we're on the topic, I think we can't ignore what's happening in Texas with with Texas Democrats denying the Texas legislature quorum, fleeing to Illinois, being protected by J.B. Pritzker because they are doing a mid-decade redrawing of the maps completely beyond the bounds of what we would consider normal. Gavin Newsom threatening, I would agree appropriately so, saying, listen, we're not going to be pushed around anymore. Where do you fall along those lines in terms of, is it a good idea for Texas Democrats to hold this line? Would it be appropriate if they do follow through for other states to respond? I mean, are we in a different moment now?
I think we are. I think we are in a crisis moment in terms of maintaining our democracy as one that is reflected of the fair opportunities for every single citizen here to vote. And through their gerrymandering, they are really just taking a sledgehammer to the Voting Rights Act, and I think really ending representative democracy with this ongoing gerrymandering. Again, it's legal, but the judges have said it's not right. It may be legal, but it is not right. I absolutely am for
separate but equal is legal too, right? Like that was,
right.
This idea of whatever is legal. Legality, illegality does it even really have a definition anymore when you have a
It's wrong.
34-time president that's been convicted?
It's absolutely wrong. So is this a different time? Yes. Do I support what the Texas Dems are doing? Absolutely. I think we should be doing every single thing that we can within our legislative roles to push back and to protect Americans for Americans.
And does that represent, do you think, a change in the sense that, normally we strive for comedy, we strive for togetherness, we strive for bipartisanship, but that seems to have just kind of flown out the window, if not in 2024, 2020, or even 2020 or 2016. Is it an evolution for you to try to get to this spot? Or is this like, yes, I've always been kind of on board with this kind of muscular approach, if you will?
I might see it, I might describe it differently.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
I have two pieces of legislation that I introduced this session are around civility. I absolutely believe that as humans, it is imperative that we treat each other with integrity and respect every time we show up together, especially as legislators. So the two pieces of legislation I introduced in Georgia to call the first day of legislative session a day of civility, to remind us all that and define what civility is. Civility is not just showing up and playing nice. Civility means I am actively and I welcome different points of view, that I allow different points of view to be heard, that I don't squelch other voices and other opinions. And that is what we are missing. So to remind legislators, that's what we are called on to do. And that means that there should be parity, as an example, in the Georgia House of Representatives. Out of all the standing committees and study committees, there are about 65 of them. Okay. Dems have one chairperson. That's not civility. That is something that is broken, a system that is broken. The other piece of legislation, also related to civility, would add the word civility to our oath of office. And again, not to suggest that we all show up like Pollyanna, right? Mm-hmm. It is to formally describe and define what civility means so that we have the opportunity to represent the people that elected us. When I'm in that chamber, there's a microphone. It is turned on and off by the Speaker of the House of the majority party. I am there, but frequently I am requesting to speak and it is not turned on. It is not allowed. That is not civil, and that's not a representative government.
Wait, so you're saying that at your desk,
yes, you
can request through a button to speak, and the Speaker of the House decides if you get to or not.
That's right.
And you just don't get, they just don't call on you.
That's correct. It's their choice, and often they don't. You might often hear people say, "What are Dems doing? I didn't see your bills up for a vote. Did they pass?" Remember I said we have 65-ish standing committees and only one Dem chair? Well, the chair for every committee determines what bills get a hearing and what bills get a vote.
Did you get a hearing on your bills?
No, none. Similarly, in terms of civility and parity, and I hope this answers the question of, has my thinking changed? I still believe that there is an opportunity for civil discourse and for bipartisanship. But that is not how the Republicans are actually governing right now. Mm-hmm. They are oppressing our voices. They are engaging in something that we've never seen before, which is a lack of collaboration, which is a lack of civility, which is a repression of our rights.
And would you say then that it's fair then to change our modus operandi?
I think we should have always been as smart and as strong and as bold and as courageous as we can possibly be. Just because my button is not turned on does not mean that I stop, right? Mm-hmm. And I speak up loudly. Similarly, the Speaker and a committee of the majority determines how many committees you actually participate on. Mm-hmm. By law, we're required to be assigned to at least 3 committees. If you look, most of the members of the majority party will be assigned to 9, 10, 11, 12 committees. A couple things. They can't actually meet at all those times.
Yeah, they're only one person,
That's right. Many of the outspoken, very bold Democrats are only assigned to the minimum required by law. Why? They don't want our voices in those committee rooms. They don't want the public to see us in those committee rooms, and they don't want our ideas. I think it's highly ineffective for a party that's constantly talking about wanting to be efficient. It's like you own a company and you just tell half of your employees, I know I hired you, but don't come to work. You don't need to come to any of those meetings. We don't need your ideas. And essentially, that's what they're doing with elected officials. I was elected by just as many people as every other representative there. And it's not for me individually that I am concerned about this. It's for the people that I represent, all the people in my district, and not just those people that voted for me. What that means is every one of those 55,000 people, their representative is not being heard, meaning they aren't being heard. So the Republican Party is stifling the voices of all Georgians through their actions, not just the members of the Democratic Party.
And does it mean then that is it still an old boys club down there? Like, I just don't see a lot of diversity on the Republican side at all, either in thought, color, gender, what have you. It's pretty a monolithic group of white guys.
Yes, their party speaks for itself in that way. I can tell you a couple of things that I have sponsored the Equal Rights Amendment here in Georgia. I did this my very first session because women's rights in particular, or ending discrimination on account of sex, period, has been a lifelong passion for me. It's one of the reasons, if not the reason, I decided to run for office when I moved to Cobb. And how many Republicans do you think have agreed to sign on to this bill?
I'm going to guess 0.
We had one.
One
who was willing. The last time we had a vote for the ERA in Georgia was in 1982. And when I talk to young people, old people, so many people do not realize that we don't have protected rights in our Constitution to prohibit discrimination on account of sex. And people will say to me all day, every day, well, we've made so much stride, especially as women, right? You've been elected, even though I was the first woman ever to be elected in the history of this district. One woman, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. And so the diversity, the inclusion that we want to see reflected from the people in Georgia, we absolutely do not see that in the Republican Party or the policies that they support or allow to even get a hearing. I think you do see that in the Democratic Party.
We're so diverse, we fight all the time.
Okay, there's that too. It does make it harder, I got to say. But that's a good thing.
I think so, right? There's this balance of, making sure that all voices are heard and then eventually rallying around. And one you mentioned diversity, or I did rather. And one thing that came up, especially in KSU, was them gutting their DEI program, getting rid of Black Studies. Help me understand your position. How did you get to your position? Yep. How should we think about that from your perspective?
I've been a part of a statewide committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. Our majority caucus leader, Carolyn Hughley, asked me to participate on that last year.
Okay.
And I immediately said yes. And we worked in tandem with an organization called American Pride Rising. And we had a series of hearings across the state to raise awareness about diversity, equity, inclusion, and to get input from people to understand how had it impacted them in terms of education or jobs, growth opportunities, and their fears at the time about what we now know happened, which is President Trump's executive order to somehow make these things illegal. And effectively, he is being successful in doing that. Mm-hmm. So we started that hearing process. I then sponsored a piece of legislation this year called Defending the American Dream. And it specifies the actions we hoped that Georgia, as a General Assembly, nonpartisan, would take on to protect diversity, equity, and inclusion here in Georgia. I can tell you that bill did not get a hearing.
I'm shocked.
Shocked. So I share all that to say that I have been very outspoken, continue to be outspoken, that I think diversity, equity, and inclusion are critical aspects to the progress, the growth that we've made for decades. My entire professional career has been mostly with really large global organizations, companies like Home Depot, Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines. There's so much data and evidence and research out there that DEI programs have helped tremendously in terms of...
Yeah, they're good for business.
They're good for business. They're good for profit. They're good for accountability. They're good for creativity. They're good for recruitment and retention of employees. So the idea that this effort is anything other than blatant racism and misogyny is, to me, it's quite clear that's exactly what this is. Kennesaw is part of the University System of Georgia. They have, over the last 2 years, been dismantling and prohibiting any university in the state of Georgia from having diversity, equity, and inclusive programs. They've asked them all to remove the language, specifically those words, from resource centers, from classes, from any part of their academic institution. So KSU is one that has agreed and completed those steps, as have every other university in the state of Georgia. So they're not by themselves in taking those steps. We all see what's happening on the national stage with Harvard, with Brown, with all of these schools, and the punitive and threatening actions that our president has taken to pull funding and to have presidents basically removed from their jobs. And that pressure is here in Georgia too. So I've been on the record privately and outspoken here and other places. I have a great, strong relationship with the administration at KSU. We've had many conversations just like this about my fears and my desires for DEI. They have chosen to take another path. I still have and hope to build an ongoing strong relationship with them. So I disagree with the choices that they've been making, but I support KSU overall in our community, and I want to make sure that we continue to have open dialogue with their leadership, with the students, with their faculty to understand I believe we'll all have our DEI moments. If you haven't had one, you will, right?
I'm a Brown doctor. Yeah, I've been down.
Right?
I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
And by that, I mean, you will be asked in your job, in your church, in your school, at some point to remove, just take out that part of your curriculum. Just take out that part of your human resources manual. And I'm asking everyone, what will you do? I asked the president of KSU the same question. So that's how I feel about it all. I did ask a lot of questions about the two majors that were removed, both the Black Studies and philosophy. And I did get a tremendous amount of information over the last 15 years about the enrollment in those courses. Sadly, the data that I saw, the enrollment was very low. And they have a policy, and they followed that policy to the best of what I understood with these two majors, that they would have other majors as well. So again, I disagree. I strongly encourage them, especially given the climate that we're in, to retain the Black Studies program. I'm a liberal arts major, so I also encourage them to retain philosophy, and I think that's a whole other conversation that we could have about the dismantling of liberal arts in America and the dismantling and the majority party's attack basically on thinking, on critical thought, on universities, on science, and our history. So,
yeah, I think, Lisa, it's just really frustrating, I think, and not to say that you really can do. I appreciate that there's only a limited amount within the powers of a state rep role that can be employed, and of course, relationships are very important in terms of maintaining relationships going forward. But that it falls on deaf ears, and I know that there's this policy. It's just curious to me, the timing, like. Like, come on, give me a break, right? Like, you can say the policies all you want, but the timing is the timing, and I'm not stupid. Like, don't tell me I'm stupid. Don't tell me 2 + 2 = 5. It never will. And I also would even push back to the KSU, be like, well, why is it so low? Have you been promoting it? Mm-hmm. Like, what have you done to get out there? Because it does feel like we're heading into like the American Dark Ages a little bit.
Absolutely.
And It gets to this idea of education writ large.
Yeah, it does.
I'm a huge proponent of education. I teach at the hospital. I've been teaching since I've been tutoring and teaching since I was in high school. Campbell High School, IB grad. I'm a
Lassiter.
I was in
Rivals.
Lassiter district, actually. I used to live at the corner or right off Trickham Road, actually, in Shallowford.
So lived off Sandy Plains.
Oh, yeah. So there you go.
Yep.
So my first job was a concessionist at it wasn't a movie tavern. I forget it was a movie theater off Gordy Parkway, right behind Home Depot. Now it's a storage center.
It probably wasn't even a Home Depot when I was in high school there. But
Publix. It's like right around the corner from Publix.
Lassiter was brand new when I attended.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I graduated in 1986. So, yeah.
I was born in 84.
That's what I'm saying. There was no Home Depot there.
But education is something near and dear to your heart.
It is.
You could talk so much about the positives that the University of Georgia system produces. I mean, we take really qualified applicants from all over the state. We put them in our system. We produce great graduates. And yet, as we've talked about, it's not without challenges, tuition being one of them.
Yeah.
And student loan debt. And now with this murder bill, I call it the murder bill, that they just passed, eliminating grad plus loans.
Yep.
Is not going to decrease the cost of tuition. It's just going to force borrowers to go to private lenders who are going to make a killing.
Yeah.
For so many students, some that watch this podcast, student loans feel like a mountain that's insurmountable.
Yeah. That is so, it's just so heartbreaking to me because I believe that the foundation for all of us to achieve our dreams, whatever they are, stems from education and access to education. And I'm a huge believer and advocate for higher learning of all kinds at all stages of our lives. I went to UGA.
You really like my gator flag up front?
I can see it from here, yes. And I already told you what era that was. And it was before the Hope Scholarship. And tuition was affordable. I graduated. I had some help from my parents for sure. But we graduated without college debt.
Wow.
And the freedom that I had and the privilege that allows to then go and pursue a job. I had an English degree. And really, took me some time to figure out how was I going to use this education? What did I want to do in terms of writing and communications and found my way. But I probably would have made very different choices if I had student debt. That would have really closed doors for me. And so I'm with you. I want to figure out ways that that becomes a priority for us as a society. And so many of these things to me are follow the money. Who is really pushing, right? I mean, the whole genesis for why you're doing this. Who's pushing this? Often these are people who are making money from the loans, and then they bundle these up and they sell them and they make more money, and it becomes very predatory. And so, yes, should we be taking a look at the terms, favorable conditions for getting loans, who's getting the loans? Again, link back to ending DEI. A lot of what is happening now is a lot of the tracking about who is getting access to financing, whether it was for education or for houses or for anything for that matter. All the work that we'd been doing to be able to show the data, to show how people were being left out and discriminated against, many of those studies are now they're ending. And they're in essence trying to erase the information so that it is less and less clear, even though we all know, because we are living it, that just empowers discrimination. So I think it's a travesty that some of the Biden programs for loan forgiveness have been rolled back. And I also think it's the height of hypocrisy.
Thank you. They paid so much money after the 2008 crisis. They did it again with COVID and just like piss money away. And now we don't have money to pay for college, or it is.
Or they will say, well, I paid for my college degree. Why should I pay for yours? And what I have to say to that is every single big business that comes to Georgia who gets to come here, and we pay for their training, we pay for their water, we pay for their roads, we pay for their infrastructure, and they don't pay a dime in tax. And that is the majority of big businesses in Georgia. Why are we not asking them to pay? So it's hypocrisy because the majority party believes that subsidizing
they love corporate welfare.
For-profit companies is fine, but helping out everyday Georgians who are just getting started for the most part with an education, there's something wrong with that. To me, that's morally wrong, and it's something we all have to continue to talk about and bring to light. Absolutely.
One term that I think that you use I think you're naming it. It's this lack of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Like people born today are less free overall when it comes to whether or not they can afford college to try to climb the socioeconomic ladder, or their decisions with their doctor and what they can do with their body, what they can teach, what they can read, what they can say, what they can advocate for. I mean, it's just complete lack of freedom in this area of authoritarianism. I don't know what it would be like and where my headspace would be if I were you representing the people. If like your oath is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, that's what do you do when it's under direct assault?
Here's what I do. I spend a lot of time talking with people in my community and making sure that I really understand how these policies affect their lives in everyday scenarios. So it's one thing, and I brought a pile of information here, right? Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a student. I really want to understand these policies, and that's not easy in the legislature because everything is paper. Nothing is connected in terms of how I research online where I can tag things and link back and forth. That doesn't happen in the Georgia General Assembly. That's prohibited.
Wait, what?
That's right. It's all paper. Now, eventually it makes its way online, but that's after we voted. That's after we've had committee hearings.
That doesn't seem very efficient.
It's very efficient, not very modern, but it's purposeful because if it's not online for the people to see, how can they comment on it? How can they show up with information to ask strategic questions? I see the pattern here. Right? Right? There's oppression at every one of these levels. And your question was, how maybe do I do it?
Yeah, how do you do it?
And the idea is that it doesn't have to be this way. I look for things in history, places where we've had moments of just terrible tragedy or division. I look for inspiration in poets, which is why I started the podcast I told you about. And I look for inspiration in other legislators and leaders, not just leaders in the political sphere, but leaders in our organizing community, leaders in our nonprofit world, leaders in education, leaders in healthcare. My professional background is in organizational consulting, and a large part of that has been in the for-profit space. Done a lot of long-range strategic planning. I'm often brought in as the person to help a company do something new, develop a new product, a new service. Big global companies like Delta Airlines, the Home Depot, Newell Rubbermaid. And what I can tell you is if, as an employee, you went to work every day in this kind of partisan way, where you're unwilling to collaborate, when you're not civil, first of all, you wouldn't have a job. Yeah, you'd be fired.
Yeah, exactly right.
You might be reprimanded and get some professional training, but you wouldn't last there very long. But you wouldn't be successful. You wouldn't be innovative. You wouldn't be able to do and build amazing products and services. And so I know it's feasible. And because I know it's feasible, I know we've got the talent, I know we've got the technology, I know we have the money and the resources in Georgia to do these things. I am not discouraged in that way. It doesn't feel hopeless. I know that there are solutions. And I also know that the majority of people in Georgia want us to be working together and want these solutions. So that fuels me. Of course, there are moments where it is really discouraging, but often in those moments, I will hear from somebody in my district who will send an email or put in a call or a text or just comment in social media. Thanks for standing up for me. And that means a lot. So,
and how is morale overall within either, I would say maybe the House caucus or the Democratic caucus writ large on the House side? What is morale like?
I think it's similar to what we probably all feel, I assume, in our communities and in our families and in our workplaces. It's hard. It's really challenging because I think most of us would rather be, gardening, biking, going to a concert every Saturday than truly going to a protest, right? But that's what we're having to do because all of our rights are under threat. So it's, I think in the Democratic Party, we already touched on this, we are very diverse. And that means there are so many different points of view of how to fundraise, how to connect with voters, what policies to support. I relish a good debate, and we have many of them, but I also...
to be a fly on that wall.
Right? But I also know that the other side, and I say other side, and sadly I believe that's what it is today, that they are purposefully doing things intentionally to divide us. Yeah. And it's really easy to fall into those traps. And I just encourage everyone in our caucus, I'm encouraged anyone listening to this, we will only succeed in protecting our democracy if we find ways to show up, to listen to each other, and to stay unified and not fight ourselves.
Right.
And that's not easy to do. It is because the issues...
There's a lot of big feelings out there too. Big
feelings and life-changing issues.
Yeah.
For some, it's life or death. For a lot of folks who are immigrants, right? It is literally life and death at this moment. And so those conversations are meaningful, they're powerful, they're very emotional, and they require our care, they require our patience, they require our study, they require our openness to learn more, to see more, and they require our flexibility. It can be easy to get entrenched in a particular point of view, really easy, especially if you've studied, right? And you feel like you know all the nuances. But that's one of the things that I think is the most impactful, is if we can show up and still be open to change.
I always find that you seem to be the keeper of hope. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for that, because there are times when I will be online and doom scrolling, really. But then you show up and you're indefatigable, right? Like, I just feel as though you keep it together, like you keep the hope alive. And I just want to thank you, because I can imagine it's really difficult. It's not easy. It takes energy to do that. And it's just sometimes it's crazy to me, because we're all human at the end of the day. We all get sick. We care for our parents. We care for our children. And that's kind of the two topics that I want to talk to you. That why doesn't the other side want to address the issues that we're going to talk about, which is childcare and elder care?
Yeah.
I'll let you decide which one you want to tackle first.
Let's talk about childcare first. And I just want to say too, no, I get fatigued. I just want to be very clear there. I do think it probably is a different generational approach in some ways, right? I didn't grow up on social media, and so showcasing every facet of my life on social media is not my natural go-to.
Yeah.
And
how do you want to start this podcast? But right? they force you to.
So, but I really enjoy connecting with other people in that way too. And so thank you for saying those affirming words. I really appreciate it. Childcare, crisis, early learning, childcare. I mean, there are so many stats.
Like it's a no-brainer, right? Like, it's a good investment of money to educate minds. Like, it's the brain, okay?
Right.
Like, it's the brain. The brain changes as it learns, and the more you feed it, the better it gets. And like, I don't understand how these people are so stupid or vile or selfish or whatever you want to call it. But funding early learning is good for everybody.
The investment we would make on 0 to 4, the exponential economic return on that, much less the human capacity return. There's no other investment we could make that would return as much money to our economy as investing in young brains. And the science is irrefutable, right?
Like, I don't understand, like, what?
Right, we're both ready to jump out.
Why do they, like, how can I, this is not something that I should have to convince you of. The evidence is right there. What is it?
I don't know. I think it harkens back to misogyny a little bit, of like, we should just have like a stay-at-home parent, and it should probably exclusively be women. I think there's an element of that, which I find just horrifying. I think all these things are linked also. Caregiving has been historically, not exclusively, but in America, historically provided by women. Mm-hmm. And women's work has historically not been valued and not been paid well. And sometimes not paid at all, whether it's caregiving for young people, for babies, for young people, or for elders, which we'll get to in a minute. And so childcare, we've never backfilled from a time when there was a stay-at-home parent, typically a mom, not always, providing some early care and learning. And we're not there anymore. We have 70+% of homes where both parents or the parent, single parent, is working. But we've never backfilled with somebody who's giving that opportunity for early learning in the same way that we have invested in kindergarten through 12th grade. Mm-hmm. We have had historically, hope we continue to keep it and protect it, had public investment, and where it's written into our state constitution that we are required by law to give an adequate education. I think that is a poor choice of words.
What's adequate? What's adequate?
How about quality, to your point about the science of it? And that's, we're required to do that, but we have never invested in the same way in early learning and childcare. And now we're seeing the catastrophic results of that, right? So we have this big, and rightly so, awareness about plummeting literacy rates in Georgia, which again,
but we're the best state for business, but our children can't read or do math.
And 2025, our kids can't read overwhelmingly. Our math scores, our science scores plummeting. Now you will see, there are lots of little side rabbit holes we could go down here. Some announcements in the math area that our scores are going up. And I would tell everyone to look very intently. We actually changed the measures by which our students are now being tracked. And we have lowered the skills so that more students will look as if they will now be achieving more, but it's because we downgraded what was required for them to make.
You mean they messed with the evaluation to make the numbers look better?
Good? Yes.
Oh, gee.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. That is shocking.
Now, when you're in these meetings, I will say often there are people who do care about our students. And so one line of thought, but it's very short-sighted, is our kids are not passing and therefore they're not graduating and therefore they don't have opportunities for meaningful careers or access to college. That is true. But rather than address the real reason why they're not doing well, changing the scores is the approach that we've taken. And now what we're seeing, even though there was another potentially well-intended program, the Georgia Match program, where every high school student in Georgia
I read about that,
would receive a letter showing where they could attend a college. Seems amazing. And there were some good studies to show in other states that a lot of students didn't think they were college material and didn't even consider applying, right?
Right.
And so this could show them, yes, this could be potentially for you. And if you just apply, you'll be accepted.
Right.
You will get in. You'll have this open door opportunity, potentially, if you could pay for it, and there are a lot of other factors. But what we've seen now, at least in this last year, and I was talking with some of the folks over at Kennesaw State University, unfortunately, we're seeing students who are now coming into college who are less and less prepared, and they're having to reinstate some of their remedial courses that they had gotten rid of years ago because our students had been showing up ready and prepared for college work. So ultimately, shortchanging our programs, shortchanging our educational system doesn't work for students. And even if they go through a couple of these new stages and it sort of falsely looks like it's working, they're not getting the skills that they need. And we really haven't addressed that root cause of adequately funding our public school system. Our funding formula hasn't changed in 30 years. And we're one of only 9 states that doesn't have a poverty weight, meaning that areas that have reduced income, those schools would get more money. We don't have that in Georgia in the same way that most states in America do. So while you might hear frequently, we fully funded our budget in the last 4 years, we fully funded based on a 30-year-old formula that was not created to support things like technology it's the same funding formula that's been stretched to now cover things like gun safety and gun security that we never had to pay attention to or fund 30 years ago. Also, our teachers are not keeping pace with salaries in the same way that any other profession is because the budget was created 30 years ago. So all of these things systematically ultimately destroy our trust in public education, and they're dismantling the opportunities that we have to actually make good on public education because we're not giving our educators enough resources.
It drives me wild, really, sometimes when I hear, we're a 2-physician household. Many of my friends were all high earners, and it drives me wild because the people of my socioeconomic status think that we're closer to the billionaires than we are the lower 99%. And the way that it manifests itself, I don't know what you think about this, but let me kind of talk it out and see what you think. So many, at least in Cobb County, if you live in South Cobb or, closer towards Smyrna, a lot of times people find themselves there. The homes are a little bit more affordable and they can kind of make do. Mm-hmm. And then what happens and the elementary schools are pretty good, depending on kind of where you live. But what happens is when you go to middle school and those elementary schools get cohorted together, a lot of people make the decision, and there's this migration pattern that happens that they move to East Cobb or North Cobb, where the middle schools and the high schools are, rated higher. And we can talk about ratings when, they're free and reduced lunch scores and everything. But what that means is that people are paying more. You pay like a 20% premium to move to East Cobb because you're paying for the schools. And by the state not fully funding education everywhere, each individual person ends up paying more overall. It's just, you're not paying a bill.
That's right.
And they don't get it. They just don't get it that we are being fleeced from the state, from the federal level when it comes to education. And it's just because I can, let's say, afford to send my kids to a private school. A lot of people end up doing that if they don't move. I don't know if you see that with people, that they just miss the forest from the trees.
I do see that, and I think it applies to education. It also applies to healthcare. Many people will say, well, I have private health insurance through my company, so it sounds bad that people might lose their Medicaid, but that doesn't affect me. And I always say, it absolutely
it
does. It affects your wallet. It affects your wait time. It affects your ability to actually get quality care when your hospital closes, your nursing home closes. So I absolutely do think it isn't that people, I think, are not open to understanding. It's just that there are barriers to the information. There's increasing lack of transparency about the budgets and about how decisions are made. And so that story and connecting those dots becomes harder and harder to do for the everyday person. So I think it's important that you and others, myself included, keep telling that story and connecting those dots, because the money lives in a lot of different places. So if you just look at one line item, that's not a complete story. And so you really have to dig, and that's why a non-digitized government process doesn't help, right? When you look at the budget, we get a stack of paper. It's not online, and it's not linked to the actual department strategies themselves. And we often only see changes in the budget, not the overall operating plan. And so if you are a person who wants to put all the pieces together, who wants to see how things fit, it's almost impossible to do it in real time in the way that the information is not shared. And we see this across the board, right? And now we're going in lots of different directions. I do want to get back to childcare, but the fact that Cobb County Schools just ended the broadcast of public comment, one more little chip, right?
That was ridiculous. Into that
level of transparency. And that's really dangerous.
I know this whole logic is such, I know you don't cuss, but like, it's such bullshit to me, because by their logic means that no public broadcast should ever be done. If people are afraid of doxing and all this nonsense, then you shouldn't be broadcasting Board of Commissioners. You shouldn't be broadcasting any government anywhere across the United States of America. I mean, Chris Ragsdale has completely lost it at this point. That's just my aside.
I think, again, I'm a fan for transparency in government. And that's one of the reasons that I said yes to coming here, because I think that's what we sign up for as legislators. I think that's what we sign up for as being an active part of our society, right? And I think there's huge value in that. So rather than end it all, why not have a program where you teach people, your educators, right, how to be respectful, how to be civil, how to be safe.
Yeah, not call people asinine. Starts, that'll be there. Let me move on, because there's a couple other topics I wanted to get to.
Can I just say one quick thing about childcare?
Yes.
So we've never invested in it. I have a bill. It's called Georgia's Children's First Trust Fund. And to your point about bipartisan, I've never walked into a room and talked about childcare and had anyone object, or I haven't had a meeting where I didn't have people from all parties, Republican, Democratic, Independent, say, this is a huge need for me and my family. So this idea is to take $3 billion from you might have heard that we have a $21 billion fund. Our government likes to call it a surplus fund, but that's inaccurate, because surplus by definition means you've covered all of your expenses, you've covered all of your needs, and you have leftover. Well, we certainly haven't done that with the highest one of the highest healthcare uninsurance rates, implementing educational scores. We have needs that have not been met. So it would be to take $3 billion, invest it, and use the revenue from those investments to fund childcare in Georgia. It would require a constitutional amendment, so it's a really heavy lift. $3 billion, we picked that amount for a couple reasons. $3 billion was the same amount of money that we used from this unallocated budget last year to fund bridges and roads and infrastructure. No one batted an eyelash, right? When we talked about $3 billion for bridges and roads, like, of course, we need that. We need to invest in our Georgia infrastructure that way.
Yeah, the physical
When I have this, right, a physical infrastructure, and yeah, there's a return on that, and yes, that's fine, and there's a benefit to all of us. When I have the same conversation about childcare, no, that's too many. That is a big, you might want to, you're new at this, right? And I've said over and over again, ask any economist, ask any educator, anyone with a financial background to run the numbers on that investment in terms of how much economically we would put back into Georgia's communities. Year one, Gears and some of the other children's advocacy organizations have said that parents who are not working right now because it's too expensive, they would pay more for childcare than they would actually make, would go into the workforce. That would be an immediate economic to the tunes of multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. Over time, the big idea is with this one-time investment, we could over time have enough money to actually make childcare and early learning universally available and free to every single Georgia family. And I think that is something that we should all be striving for. And so just wanted to share about this.
Thank you. No, we will definitely be on the lookout, because that's the kind of like thinking that we need. We need that forward thinking, pragmatic thinking, innovative, of being like, let's actually make a difference and spend money where it makes the best return on your investment, really. And there's the brain. Hello.
Right. The science of that development. And initially, the thinking is, and the enabling legislation that we're working on with input from childcare providers, from parents, from educators, and community members, is that 30% would go to a program right now through Department of Early Care and Learning, DCAL, called CAPS. And right now that helps some families, not all, but some at the lowest income levels pay for childcare. So we'd have more money going into that program to support more families. 30% of the money would go to childcare providers themselves. They really need help in terms of strengthening their quality, paying childcare workers. We have the lowest salary, the lowest paid childcare workers in the country. We're number 50. Again, it kind of goes back to women not valuing care. And in this instance, it's predominantly Black women and women of color. So 30% to go to childcare providers, to pay teachers more, have greater benefits, invest in the infrastructure. Caring for our youngest looks very different than caring for kindergarten through 12th grade. These are babies.
Don't I know
Right?
it? I have 3 young ones at home. Yeah.
And so it's not going to look the same way that our other public schools do. It will probably still be a network of in-home care providers, some for-profit providers, some not-for-profit providers. 30% then would also go to create that long-range strategic plan, to really get people in a room together to say, what is it that we want to build for the next 10, 20, 30 years that will help all of our students develop their brain capacity to do all the things they want to do. So I just wanted to share.
No, thank you so much.
That's a big idea. Oh, by the way, I floated to our caucus. I floated to the Speaker of the House, to the Speaker Pro Tem. I said, here's an idea. I'm a freshman at the time. Anyone could take this, who's a chair in a committee, who's serving on a committee where this would be appropriately voted on and vetted. Crickets. So we're bringing it back again, but it is something that I hope will gain traction and people will really get behind.
A couple more topics.
Yes.
Elder care. Something that I deal with on a daily basis. Nursing homes, you can find a few maybe good ones, but there are so many stories that I hear. I cannot tell you how many stories I hear about just the poor state of elder care. And it's not just Georgia.
Yep.
It is a nationwide issue. What can the legislature do?
So much that we can do. So I do sit on the Human Relations and Aging Committee. So ostensibly, that's where a lot of bills related to seniors should come. They don't all get assigned there. Let's just start with accountability and oversight. One trend right now that I'm seeing, and you may see this as well, is private equity gobbling up nursing home and assisted living facilities. They come in, they are driven by profit and profit only. And so the quality of care may go down immediately. We have reduced staff, reduced facilities. And then when they're not making enough profit, then they actually close. And so we have fewer and fewer resources. So we could be, as legislators, looking at some restrictions around private equity ownership of nursing home facilities, hospice care facilities, and
I would love
assisted
that.
living.
I would love that. I would love some sort of teeth in there too as an enforcement mechanism.
Yep. The big horrible bill, right? Also, and in Georgia, we have a waiver, reduced or pushed back some legislation that Biden had introduced to try to ensure that we had at least one registered nurse on staff for all of our nursing homes, and that they would be there for 24/7. That requirement has been rolled back, I think, to 2030. That may not be exactly the time period, but it's been rolled back. So we're not moving forward with that level of qualified care. A lot of folks will say, hey, it's really expensive to have a registered nurse on staff 24/7. In fact, we have a shortage of nurses. It's impossible. And I believe a lot of those are real problems that we're facing, but I believe we should address those problems to ensure that we have the proper care at all these facilities. So that's another thing that we could be looking at. I have two bills that I also think are related. One is a request for Medicare eligibility. Caregiving is not considered work. So you might have the spouse of somebody who's trying to care, or a person like myself.
It is so germane to what I do. Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So they are not able to take time to care for their aging relative because they won't have health insurance themselves. And so that's a bill. That level of eligibility is managed at the state level. So that is something we could do here in Georgia. And so my bill would add caregiving of all ages and stages as a qualifying as work for Medicaid.
That would be huge.
I think that would be huge. And then another thing that we can be doing is looking at prior authorization.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Small impact.
Oh, my God. Prior authorization. My goodness. The bane of so many people's existence. It's gotten out of control. It really
is insurance controlling healthcare and medical advice, in my opinion, at this point. So I have introduced a bill in Georgia that is really comprehensive, which would prohibit prior authorization across the board.
Oh, I would love that.
Which would give healthcare back to the doctors.
You hear this, all healthcare workers? Okay? All the doctors that bitch and moan about being on the phone and having to do all the extra work. Because here's what it really does. It steals time from people. Because you don't get compensated for it, but your patient still needs the medicine. So what are you supposed to do? Just be like, all right, sorry. No, you're going to do the right thing and spend the time for the patient. Or there's so many, oh my God, I hate prior authorization so much.
Well, it's also just really destructive. Patients are not getting the care that their doctors, the experts, know would help them. And it's all driven by, we talked about in the beginning, follow the money, and I think it's gone unregulated. In Georgia, insurance rates are increasing.
Yeah, they are.
And our commissioner has not pushed back on many, if any, insurance rate increases. And so our insurance companies are increasingly profitable, and they're doing that because they're denying care, and patients are suffering. I get, in terms of constituent needs and requests and calls that I get, majority of them are related to healthcare. Something's been denied, they've been sick, they lose their job, and I have another bill that's not exactly related, but maybe it is, to elder care as well, which is the Patient Protection Act. So one of the largest reasons that people go bankrupt in Georgia is due to medical debt.
Yeah, it's a racket.
And so this bill would seek to create a process by which patients would be protected. They would still pay for the medical bills that they owe, but it would end the practice of healthcare providers selling their healthcare debt to third-party collectors, and then third-party collectors ruining people's credit and causing them to go bankrupt. And it would require that healthcare providers enter into negotiations with patients for a reasonable payment plan, so they could, one, continue their healthcare treatment,
right,
continue to eventually, hopefully, get back to the meaningful work that they were doing, and also pay the medical bills that they owe. It does nothing to address the skyrocketing costs of healthcare and the fact that a lot of these bills are astronomically high because most people are uninsured. That's a different problem.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours on that. Let me move on just to two topics more. They're healthcare related, but this past week we saw the CDC shot up and a security guard lost their life. And I'm really sick of this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm speaking from a place that, having gone through COVID, having been called a healthcare hero for maybe about 4 minutes. And then once the vaccine came out, we were the devil. Mm-hmm. I am sick of not hearing about an assault weapons ban. I am sick and tired of not regulating some form of guns. Mm-hmm. I'm sick and tired of people not having the ability to, or the police or whoever, know that if somebody's mentally ill and they shouldn't have a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I am sick and tired of healthcare workers being the enemy when all we do is try to protect life and end suffering. That security officer should have got home that day.
Absolutely.
To his family, and he didn't. I'm tired of it. I've absolutely had it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do, because every day that I drop my kids off at school, I'm terrified that they might be on the news, or if I get a call, my heart sinks from school. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of walking in the hospital not knowing if you're packing or not. And if I say the wrong thing, and I end up having really hard conversations with people, but I'm nice to them, but like, people are off, and like, you deal with everybody. I'm tired. I am tired. So many parents are tired. We're tired of living in fear. Mm-hmm. And I know you're on the same page. What can we do? I'm so tired.
It's gut-wrenching to walk around with that level of stress. I share the horror and the sadness about the officer that was killed again. I mean, there are so many common sense things, pieces of legislation that Democrats have put out there. I was a co-sponsor of several this session that were related to red flag laws, seeking to prevent people who have mental illness from purchasing a gun, people who have had restraining orders for domestic violence from having a gun, possessing a gun.
And even in other states, right? Like, that's the other thing too we saw. Yes. With the other.
Yes. I mean, we had police officers coming to testify in hearings this year about the fact that the Georgia law requires, I believe I understood this correctly, requires them to auction off all the weapons that are confiscated. And this one police organization in South Georgia was saying they had so many that now they were spending an inordinate amount of their time cataloging and reselling guns.
Get them off the street. Like, why are we putting them back on?
To kill and harm officers. It was making their job harder. And the reaction to that from the other party was like, again, thoughts and prayers. We're so sorry, but no, we won't be taking a vote on this legislation, and therefore it not moving forward. They also tried to prevent cities like in Savannah, who were seeking to protect, right? If you have a gun in your car, make sure that it's hidden and your doors are locked. And
yes. And what is wrong with that?
Our Secretary of State is suing them to say that's an infringement on our right to bear arms.
Give me a break, like.
And so I'm with you. It is a point where I went to the vet several months ago, and getting out of my car, this guy got out of the car and he had like 4 guns, just like all over his belt. Wasn't in a uniform of anything. And you do, in every area and aspect of your life, start to think.
Every time I go to a Braves game.
Right.
Every time I go anywhere, I'm looking like, all right, where's the exit?
Where is the exit? And that, going back to freedom, our kids don't have that freedom growing up. We don't, but especially our children. I was thinking about that. I saw, I was talking to some students, and we were talking, gun violence was the big issue they wanted to talk about. And one of the young men said, he pointed to his backpack, and for a second I thought he was going to say, I feel like I now have to carry a gun. He didn't. He said, no, I now carry like a tourniquet and emergency supplies everywhere I go because I'm afraid someone will be shot. And I mean, I went home and bawled. That kind of trauma that we've inflicted on every single child in America, walking around right now. I used to be able to walk around. I never, ever thought I'm going to be gunned down. That was never a thought that entered my mind as a young person. And it shouldn't be something that we tolerate now. I think it's an abomination. And what can we do? We've got to keep showing up to elect more representatives who feel the way that we do, to enact safe gun laws to end this scourge.
I think my message to Democrats is stop being scared on this issue. Go hard on this issue. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants their child to die.
No one wants their child. And I will say this, we passed a school safety bill this legislative session. I did press the button to speak as it was being passed, and I was called on. And to point out that in the 50 or so pages of the bill that was supposed to address gun safety, we did not mention the word gun, not even once. And the programs, there was a slight mention to gun safety programs, but none of the legislation did anything to curb access to guns, which is the number one reason that young people are using them, is that they have easy access to guns, either at their parents' homes because we don't have requirements for safe storage, and that they're just so ubiquitous all around us. And I think even I read in the news today, that's what happened with the shooter at the CDC, that he broke into, I think, his parents, and he was from Cobb County. He broke into their safe and got their guns and used them in this horrifying way.
Yeah,
and he's also dead. So it's this horrifying nightmare for every family involved, for the police officers, for the parents here in Cobb County, for all of the families that work at the CDC, and for what?
And I work trauma. I'm the palliative care doc on the trauma unit at times. We deal with gunshot wounds. So, unfortunately, increasingly commonly, now that we've become a level 1 trauma center and AMC has closed, I don't ever want to hear from a Republican again that they're pro-life. I don't want to freaking hear it.
Yep.
And I don't want to hear that they care about children, because your actions don't tell me, show me. And I want Democrats to go really hard on this issue, because we're scared.
Yeah.
And fear is received by the amygdala in the brain. The amygdala is near the center of the midbrain. It regulates actions, which is why you see Republicans going off. But let me get on to
yes. We've had elected officials gunned down in their homes for speaking up, right? So this idea of fear and freedom, the freedom to advocate for the rights that we all want, in addition to our kids being slaughtered in school. So I agree with you. And in the House Democratic Caucus, we're doing everything that we can. We've had press conference after press conference. We introduced no less than 20 bills every single session, and work really hard to get them hearings and to have votes. There are lots of organizations out there that are also very, very vocal. I think there's actually a protest tonight by an organization that is Clinicians for Gun Safety. So it's healthcare workers. There's another organization, Georgia Majority for Gun Safety. It's folks from across the spectrum, all different political parties.
And Moms Demand Action, right?
Yes, Moms Demand Action, Everytown, Gun Safety. There's so many places where we can be organized, be loud, continue to tell the story about that. This is not what Americans want. This is not what Georgians want.
Thank you. Okay, second to last question. And it's surrounding healthcare, but it's something that's also doesn't get a lot of talk, but I wanted to bring it up with you because you are sitting House Rep, and it's an honor to sit across from you. This idea about cannabis and cannabis oil. I'll tell you a little story. So back in 2016, I was able to go in front of the Georgia House and provide testimony for them as they were debating what qualifications would someone need, or what conditions would someone need to qualify them for a Georgia cannabis oil low oil card. I was able to advocate for any hospice patient in the state of Georgia to do that. So I'm proud of that. One thing that came out of that, actually, is fast forward a couple of years later, I was working in Paulding County.
Okay.
And It's a young couple. She was in her 40s. She had really bad gastroparesis, meaning her stomach wouldn't move at all. She couldn't eat. She'd throw up all the time. Mm. And was being actually fed through a tube through like IV nutrition. And IV nutrition can give you other problems. It can give you pancreatitis. It's not a benign thing. And she was in and out of the hospital. She's like, I'm done. And I ended up talking to her about hospice. She was so done that she was in so much pain. She's like, I can't live anymore like this. So sign me up for hospice. And I remember this couple specifically because I'm going to ask you this question, but the next one, but I always ask what's meaningful for people. And it was their animals. And they had an animal sanctuary. And that was really meaningful because they saved animals. And she's like, can I go home and smoke cannabis? I'm like, yeah, go do whatever you want. We're signing up for hospice. I expected her to die. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, I think maybe it was like a year or two later. I end up seeing the husband in the hospital. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, Dr. Cheda. He's like, you won't guess what happened. She went home and she used cannabis and she's gained 20 pounds. We're off of hospice. And I tell that story because in addition to the next thing is I've taken care of thousands and thousands that have died from alcohol and tobacco use. Mm-hmm. To date, not one solely from cannabis use. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, it doesn't have any negative consequences. I'm sure it does. Absolutely. Nothing is, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Right.
But when it comes to a health issue or a criminal justice issue, because cannabis possession and distribution has been the pretense to lock up so many Black and brown people, and an economic issue, if we're talking about money for programs, why, I think I have the answer, but I know the answer, but why don't we pursue cannabis decriminalization and allowing it to be recreational, just like alcohol in this state? Yeah. It's regulated. I'm not saying don't regulate.
Yeah. I could support legalization of it and I would like to see it regulated.
Nobody's saying like the Wild Wild West here, but.
Well, I just think right now, because it's not legal, we have so many black markets. And so we have so much, just devastation because so many of the drugs are then laced with who knows what, right?
I think it creates like Mexican drug cartels. How did Al Capone and his guys get rich? Well, prohibition and making money off alcohol. And so many other people are now making money off of the dark market or the black market of cannabis.
But I believe in science. I believe in expertise. So I really look to doctors, to healthcare experts, to folks who are studying the effects, the positive effects, the negative effects, if there are some.
And there are, yes. So just to be clear,
right.
Kids should not use cannabis, primarily for the fact that chronic cannabis use in younger patients can stunt brain growth. I'm not about that. I study the brain.
I'm not either.
I want your brain to be fully developed, but I'm glad to hear your openness on this issue.
I'm open and I'm interested in learning more about it. And I did just read some stories this week about so many of the products that are legal now, gummies and things. And because we have not necessarily invested in the right training and regulation, they're winding up in the wrong hands, children's hands. And they're not the right amount for children, and children are winding up in ERs. So I do think, again, I'm all for investing in science, investing in research, and then using the findings to help guide the policies that really are effective and care for people.
I'm really glad to hear you say that. Okay, I've kept you a long time. So the last question, which I always ask everyone.
Okay.
So it's like this 6-part question that I do.
It's the last one.
Six questions. But the fifth one is, what provides meaning in your life? What makes life worth living for you?
Family, friendships, really are at the root of, for me, all of it is, I'm really lucky that I live very close to my parents. They're in their 80s. And we have really strong relationships. We talk politics. We have lots of debates. I have 2 sisters. I have nieces and nephews. I'm an aunt.
Oh, 3 girls.
I have
Your parents had 3 girls.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, you should talk to my dad. Many people know Ron. I'm a great aunt. And that really is a great joy in my life. And so I would also say, and I don't say this just because I'm on as a representative, but I really, the serving in this way is the biggest honor of my life. I really take it seriously. And I hope, it is my just immense hope that at the end of this, I could say that I helped to improve opportunities for people. And your earlier question about how to stay in it. I mean, there is the chance to do that. And that's huge. To think that you could change just enough so that somebody had an opportunity to get an education that could change the trajectory of their whole life, or they could be with somebody and care for them because we had the right structure in place, or that people didn't die because of preventable gun violence. If we could do just 1/10 of any of those things, that would be huge. That would make it all worthwhile. So that it really does bring me joy and meaning, the work.
Well, Lisa Campbell, House District 35 representative, thank you so much for coming on. Let me end by saying that in the time that I've been in politics, I've never had anybody say an untoward word about you.
Oh.
And I think that's because, and I got a little taste of that now, it's because it's clear to me the energy that you give off, that you care deeply, you want to study, you want to do a good job. And let me say, as a Cobb County citizen, that you make us extremely proud. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for caring and for doing what you're doing and for including me and inviting me. I really appreciate it.